Distinguished heads of state and of governments, Your Majesty, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear friends, welcome to all of you. Welcome to the 6th World Economic Forum on the Middle East. Here we meet again at a critical time, and I'm thankful to all of you to come here and to engage in a joint effort shaping the regional agenda in a global context. The purpose of this meeting is to address and hopefully to advance all the issues on the regional agenda, and to do so in the best World Economic Forum's tradition, which means in a multi-stakeholder framework, creating a true public-private partnership for progress. We shall be strongly forward-oriented, as it is clearly indicated in our theme, Learning from the Future. This means that we are the emergence of a completely networked global society, thanks to the progress of communications technologies. The second evolution is that we are living in a much more empowered and of our ecology. We now have the honor of His Excellency President Mohammed Hosni Mubarak, who has shown true leadership as a relentless promoter and guarantor for political stability in the region, and as a catalyst for unleashing the economic potential of Egypt, making it, a true gateway to opportunities. Mr. President, before taking the floor, we already would like to thank you for your hospitality, for your patronage of the meeting, and for the excellent cooperation with your government, and above all, for your enlightened leadership. Ladies and gentlemen, the President of Egypt, His Excellency Mubarak.
Thank you. In the name of Allah, the Rahman, the Merciful. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure to welcome you here in Sharm el-Sheikh, the city of peace, and to meet with you on the land of Egypt and Sinai, with all what carries of religions and history and what narrates on the clashes of the humans and the years of peace and war. Sinai was an arena for bloody wars in its history, either the contemporary or the old, and at the same time it was a crossing point to the connection of humans and messages of heavens. I talk to you, and close to us the Mount Sinai lies, and the Holy Valley Monastery of St. Catherine, and the track of Jesus, Joseph, and the Virgin Mary, and echoes in this land what being told us by the Torah, the Bible, and the Holy Quran, and the holy heavenly books. The history of Sinai summarizes since Ramesses and Akhenaton some of the human nature contradictions between the greatness and weakness of the human person, his intelligence and humbleness. It is narrated by its sands and mountains how humanity can sublime to make civilization, and how can it slope to violence and bloodshedding. This history is a part of the Middle East March and the humanity as well, where we can take lessons in order to think thoroughly in the conditions of this world and the world conditions, and to look forward a better future to its peoples and a world which is more peaceful, secure, just, and stable. The participants of the forum which we open today are the elite of leadership in business, economy, investment, and the scholars and academia, in addition to the media professionals, artists, and creators. We all feel gratitude towards Professor Schwab and express our appreciation to the continuous successes he achieved, and we congratulate him with the increasing international recognition with the influential role of this important forum. Ladies and gentlemen, Davos Forum comes back again to Sharm el-Sheikh and to the Middle East, and the whole world is witnessing a crossroads amidst regional and international challenges, where the whole world faces severe economic crisis that started by the collapse of the U.S. real estate and financing market, and the rates of economy started to retreat. The world is overcoming severe waves that witness unprecedented increases in the prices of energy, the basic foods, and the materials, and affect greatly, in the first place, the poor countries and the poor people inside the one country. This forum is held while these issues have become the topic of the issue of both the developed and developing countries, and the business of the international institutions and organizations, and those who work in politics and the academia, together with the thinkers, the economists, and those who are interested in the affairs of the world. The current international crisis introduces many problems where in its economic where intertwine the social and economic dimensions intertwingle, and also the issues of the climate change and the water and energy supplies and the economic growth rates and the standard of living in the developed and developing worlds. Providing food security to the poor represents a basic challenge, and it is a great responsibility towards the poor and the least the minor income people, including the poor people of the rich developed countries. And this target should not be a point of auctioneering that raise the rises of prices and orientations that use the food of people as a fuel to the machine. Is it reasonable that some people go on in producing the biofuel supported by their governments? Is it reasonable or acceptable that the agricultural crops be used in producing ethanol in order to increase the crisis of food? The international community is in a dire need to re-estimate the genuine cost of producing the biofuel with its social and environmental reflections and its repercussions on the food security of the humanity. There would be a dire need to an urgent international dialogue around its table, the exporter-importers of food meat from the developed and developing countries, a dialogue that introduces solutions to fulfill the food needs of the people and at the same time provide supplies of energy to the global economy. A dialogue that results in solutions we all agree upon and abide by. We are facing difficult challenges and we should deal with as the responsibility which is collective. We all face the effects, the negative effects of the climate change and all the related types of production and consumption and all what it may cause of drought, desertification and phenomena of global warming. We are facing a vicious circle imposed by the relation between the energy and food supplies in order to make all of them both a reason and a result at the same time to the present crisis of the international economy. And they both share in its aggravation to the extent that they threat by turning it into a chronic crisis unless we all do our best to contain it. I'll carry this invitation to make a dialogue on that international concern to the Food and Agriculture Organization FAO next month in Rome, and I'm looking forward to that, all that it may guide both the developed and developing countries to the right path to contain this crisis. Ladies and gentlemen, this meeting was held 2 years ago here in Sharm el-Sheikh with the emblem of a promise to a new generation, a promise that summarizes the aspiration of the Middle East peoples to a better tomorrow and future that bears prosperity and peace to the whole and to a favorite international climate to support its march and aspirations. And where are we now from that promise? Has the world and the Middle East become in a better standard to make it fulfill it? Here in this hall I invited to stand against the constant rise in prices of energy, and I called for redressing the orientations of the world economy and the structural imbalances in the public budgets of some big economic powers and to the imbalances in their exchange rates. I called for supporting the agricultural commodities and warned from the protective orientations of some developed and developing countries and from its repercussions on the international trade and the Doha round negotiations. Where are we now from all of that? The Middle East is craving for peace, stability, and development, and it gets over an important stage towards the political and economic, even the social reforms, and it has strategic and natural, even human resources that enables it to realize stability. Has the promise of peace been realized? And the stability of this sensitive region, where is it from what happens in Darfur, Somalia, Lebanon, and Iraq? What about shaking stability in the Gulf region? The Middle East and the whole world has witnessed many developments since we last met. Have we become more able to face these common challenges? Have the dangers of terrorism and the mass destruction weapons retreat? What about the millennium objectives? What about the issues of social justice, human rights, and poverty? What about the issues of education, environment, children, women? What about our movement towards organized crime and money laundering, even the human trafficking? Any objective assessment to the regional developments and the international ones along the past 2 years will recognize that the expectations of the Middle East towards peace and stability has not come true, and that the international atmosphere did not support these eligible aspirations properly. Ladies and gentlemen, the World Economic Forum is held this year under the emblem of learning from the future, in a trial to determine its features with all what introduce of challenges and opportunities, and with what all it may come with changes and potentialities that can be difficult to be determined. And I believe that learning from the future starts from learning from the lessons of the past and the present. Our world has witnessed many changes and unprecedented changes in science, knowledge, information, technology, and communication. Globalization and interdependence have become the feature of this world, and our world has turned into a small village. Many theories have retreated that lasted for long, and emerged new theories. There have become a talk on the clash of civilizations and the end of history, and another talk about the postmodernism and the post-ideologies. The 21st century has got over the polarization witnessed by the last century between the East and the West, between socialism and capitalism, and there has become an international agreement leaning towards the mechanism of the market, seeking to deal positively with globalization. So what happened and what's happening now? The world has become in a crossroads, and the developing countries has become in a very difficult situation, and before a very difficult comparison between what they realize from the benefits of globalization and what they face from challenges. The current world crisis has come to support the situations of those who call for the protective procedures in a confrontation with those who believe in the economic and trade liberation. This crisis has come to add new factors to shake the stability and to give new pretexts to the backwardness, Salafist, terrorism and extremism powers, and to the the international community is responsible to redress this current situation and contain the repercussion of this current crisis on the developing countries and their peoples. The need has become dire to rethink creatively and objectively on the form of the world that we aspire for the future. We are looking forward a world where the future does not seem to be a source of any disputes, but a source of aspiration and hope. We have the lessons of the history, the near and the far. We have the reality of our world today, and we have many scenarios introduced to that future, and we have to select. Ladies and gentlemen, Egypt has determined its choices, and with a stable conviction and a vision, it realizes strenuously. Our choice has always been continuing reform on all its pivots and continuing seeking the Middle East peace together with its stability and security. We are in our march towards supporting our democracy and supporting pluralism and our political life. We are in our path towards reforms coming from the inside, caring for the conditions and specificities of our community, and caring from many experiments tried to leapfrog, and they were resulted to their failure, and trials of imposing democracy from the abroad under many pretexts that ended with destruction and killing people. 4 years ago, the reform paces started to go faster, and we took decisions, serious decisions, to reform the custom and tax sectors and develop the attracting atmosphere of investments. We redefined the role of the state and followed courageous and brave policies to encourage the private sector and to liberate our economy and realize its openness to the world. We realized in the path of reform many achievements. Our economy realizes a growth rate goes over 7% for the third year. The direct foreign investments increased from $3 billion 4 years ago to get over $11 billion per year, to represent more than 8.5% of the GNP. Unemployment rate increased from 11.5% to 8%. And the budget deficit decreased from 8.5 to about 6%, and we plan to make it get over 3% by 2011. We wouldn't have contained the repercussions of the current world crisis without increasing the deficit of the budget. But for what we have achieved of the economic reform, and we wouldn't have alleviated the reflections on the poor and the low-income people but for these steps taken towards the social reform. We are in our way of reform without looking to the back, supporting our cooperation with our international partners, seeking genuine partnership based on investment and trade. We calling for friendship with all and seeking that our international relations being based on mutual respect. That was our choice in dealing with the Egyptian issues, with all their challenges, aspirations. What about Egypt's choices towards the crises of its region in the world. It selected peace. We bear its banner and followed up with the peace process with all its successes and failures. And we had no second thought in supporting it, and we exerted every effort to help it overcome its crises. We continue that convincingly, that the just peace is what realizes the security and stability of the Middle East, and that the Palestinian issue is the core of the conflict in the region and the correct way towards redressing all its crises and the focal points of tension. I have reiterated many times that the escalation of terrorism is not referred to the gap between the poor and the rich in the world, as some people may think, or the absence of democracy, as others may think. But its main reference is the issues that have long been waiting for a just solution, on the top of which is the Palestinian issue. Issues that increase the feelings of anger and give opportunity to terrorism and violence, provide the pretext to who wage war and who may try to export their ideologies and impose control and hegemony on this region of the world. The just comprehensive peace is the key to the stability of the Middle East and the correct path to surrounding terrorism. And the Arab world has introduced the Arab Peace Initiative 6 years ago and welcomed the vision of President Bush to achieve peace according to the concept of the two states, and has welcomed the current negotiations between the two parties, the Palestinian and the Israeli, and reaching the peace before the end of his office. And I'm looking forward to the day where this promise may be fulfilled. The invitation to entrenching the values of freedom, justice, and human dignity all are an integral part, and we are aspiring this invitation include the people of Palestine to end its suffering after 6 years of suffering. Egypt is doing tireless efforts to realize peace in Gaza and to alleviate the suffering of the people there and pave the way to negotiation in order to reach a peace agreement that end occupation and declare the independent state. The meeting of the Palestinian groups in Cairo, the meetings in Cairo this month has reached to an agreement on the requirements of appeasement, and I'm looking forward to a similar response, positive response from the Israeli part, and to reach negotiation with the Palestinian part on the final issues as soon as possible and in good faith. People is going to continue its efforts to support the peace and the Palestinian issue. It is our issue and our interests, and together with our borders and national security. And despite our appreciation to the International Quartet to mobilize the financial and economic support to the Palestinian Authority institutions, we call for combining this with the necessary political support to the peace negotiations. We all should realize that Abu Mazen is in a need to a just and honorable peace agreement, realize the aspirations of his people and blessed by the people as well. And anybody who may think that anybody can provide a cover to a meeting does not meet with aspirations of the Palestinians is mistaken, of course. Dear friends, ladies and gentlemen, the peace and prosperity of the Middle East is a part and parcel of the world. And when we talk about the future, we should be aware that time is running short and the age is witnessing us. The future starts from this point, from this particular moment. We, of course, are facing common challenges. However, we are able to work hand in hand to get them over. Expectations of the scenarios to the future of this region and the world may vary, but we all agree on aspiring to a better future that elevates the common values of humanity, achieve peace and stability, and takes the man to the highest degrees of dignity and potentials and prevent him from weakness and trivialities. I welcome you all, brothers and sisters, once again, and I wish you and this forum beneficial discussions, and thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen,
سيداتي وسادتي، إنه لشرف شخصي لي ومصدر شرف عظيم وسعادة بالغة لي أن أرحب بصاحب الجلالة الملك عبدالله بن الحسين ملك.
In some way, I should say in a direct way, I consider you as the father of this World Economic Forum in the Middle East, because I may remember in Davos in 2003, you made the proposal to have a Davos meeting here in the region to act as a focal point for discussions of the issues which are in the mind of everybody here in the region. I was wondering how to introduce you. I have done it many times. I think I can summarize it in some very simple sentences. Your Majesty. Your Majesty is a man of wisdom, a man of courage, a man of peace, and a good friend of the World Economic Forum. Welcome, Your Majesty.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Professor Schwab, Your Excellencies, distinguished members of the Forum, when they write the histories, this could be 2008, the birth year of an independent Palestine, an endpoint to a 60-year timeline of conflict, the start of a new global position for the entire Middle East. My friends, these goals are more than a vision. After years of delay, progress is possible. The Arab Peace Initiative has provided the foundation for a settlement between Israelis and Palestinians this year, and peace has global support. Time is now of the essence. it is vital that the year 2008 does not end as the year 2000 did, with progress cut off, the sphere of agreement collapsing, and years of expanding violence to come. We need to ask ourselves, how much further ahead would we be today if these last 8 years had been years of peace and stability? If all this time a sovereign Palestine had been building and thriving, if extremists and external forces had not had this issue to manipulate, if global investors and customers had been able to approach our region with even greater business confidence, if the Middle East were already the united economic powerhouse it can and should be, a regional community spreading growth, ending poverty, creating jobs and securing the future for which our young people are preparing so hard. Let us not stand here in 8 years or even 1 year thinking, if only. We can begin a different future right now. And it starts by lifting the shadow of catastrophe. Celebrations of independence are hollow, while lasting peace is still denied because of unhealed wrongs. The real day of celebration will be here only when Palestinians and Israelis can both say, I am free, I am safe, the past is behind us. The leaders on both sides promised their people that they will never abandon their nation's rights. But let them also tell their people what will achieve those rights: a negotiated settlement with all its hard choices. Nothing else will do. Not armed unilateral action, not barriers. Force and isolation bring false peace, and false peace is false security. After 60 years, it is past time to create a new basis for the future, one that recognizes the needs of all. For Palestinians, such agreement promises true independence, a state that can stand on its own, an intact land within sovereign borders, capable of fruitful economic life and secure, sustainable national development. For Israelis, it brings true security, an end to the conflict, and relationships of respect and cooperation across the region. And ending this conflict will have global impact. Here in the region, it is key to resolving other challenges created or worsened by this central crisis. In Lebanon, the recent escalation brings dangerous threats of sectarian strife and revives fears of civil war. The Lebanese people are now made to pay the price of external powers' interference. It is crucial that the Lebanese make their own decisions and resolve their own differences, independent of external influences. We cannot overestimate the cost of regional conflict, even as we move forward. This room is full of success stories that give evidence of our people's tremendous capability. Many of you who have played leading roles in a challenging environment to help our region and economies advance. But a universal truth applies. To make gains against the hurdles, the citizens of conflict areas must work far harder risk far more than those who live in regions of stability and peace. We must not accept such a disadvantage. And this year, God willing, we will change our place in the equation. The Middle East is an exceptional place and position to move forward. Rising global energy demands has brought abundant financial liquidity. These resources build on our region's other positive assets: a marketplace of 250 million consumers, a deep tradition of enterprise and learning, and a young population with high aspirations and global awareness. We need to do all we can to invest these assets in the growth of our own economies. This will make a direct contribution to our future, rising per capita incomes, lifting poor communities, giving young people opportunities, and building a platform for our businesses to compete worldwide. It is also vital to invest in innovation. The Middle East has had a long experience with issues that other regions are only beginning to worry about, from water scarcity to sustainable energy. Our companies should be at the top of these emerging industries as the leading source of creative solutions. And in all these areas, government can do much to remove constraints to growth, invest in a competitive workforce, and encourage new enterprise. Jordan's enterprise zones are an example, first in Aqaba and now also in communities around the country. Regional cooperation is also vital, and it is advancing with new linkages and agreements needed for a true regional market. We cannot relax these efforts. We need to expand them. Again, Jordan and many other countries in our region have initiatives in place. Last year, Jordanian armed forces and several private sector businesses came together in a unique jobs training program in the booming construction industry. Young apprentices received salaries and benefits equivalent to military recruits and a job at the end of their training period. In such efforts, there is no substitute for private sector engagement. Our countries cannot wait for economic growth to solve all our problems, even if it could. We need right now to put our minds and resources together to build structures and processes that will put our countries in position to succeed. That means deliberate, focused development partnerships, public-private initiatives in education, health, infrastructure, and more. Business has great management tools to offer. The flexibility to move quickly, access to global capabilities and resources, and last but not least, the ability to direct resources and personnel to urgent needs. The link between businesses and development falls in the area that has come to be called corporate social responsibility. There are those who think that CSR as a new term for charity or a kind of public relations. I don't believe that we in the Middle East could ever make that mistake. Comprehensive development is a pillar of our economic future. It is essential to the success of every business here. The more effectively we work together, the faster we can change lives, build stability, and create the future our people deserve. It is a moral responsibility, It is a human responsibility, and it is a business responsibility as well. My friends, it has been said that a great man makes more opportunities than he is given. In your meetings here at the Forum, I hope you will create many new opportunities to advance the future of your countries and region. It starts at the top, with CEOs and CFOs who can commit the vision and powers of your organizations. But success depends on people at every level, from professionals to trainees. And above all, let us invest in our young people. Work with them, listen to them, tap their energy, and respect their hopes. I am honored to have joined you at this World Economic Forum on the Middle East. I thank President Mubarak and the Egyptian government for hosting this conference and for the hospitality we have been shown. This year's theme is learning from the future. I think that one of the most important lessons I've learned is that tomorrow will not be ours to shape unless we start building tomorrow today. Together we have a chance to make life better for millions of people through coexistence and community, through social and political development, through real economic opportunities. And every advance we create now will be multiplied exponentially when peace comes. And we must be ready. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, please remain seated until we have the honor to receive the President of the United States. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, dear members, it is a great honor to welcome the President of the United States at the World Economic Forum on the Middle East. At the very end of his trip, which brought the President to this region to personally reinvigorate peace efforts. The House of Peace, or to use the President's own words, the region of integration and tolerance needs, as we all know, 4 pillars. The first pillar is economic development to ensure a dignified life for everybody, particularly for the tens of millions who will soon be entering the job market. The second pillar is social development, to provide everybody with a fair chance through integration, empowerment and education, particularly women and children. The third pillar is democracy and good governance, to ensure decency, transparency, pluralism and openness. The fourth absolutely essential pillar is security, and we all have to exercise zero tolerance for terrorists, whatever their so-called vision or cause may be. In order to find a long-term sustainable solution, we have to construct those 4 pillars together. And here we have to integrate all stakeholders of society, business leaders and of course political leaders, media leaders, religious leaders, social entrepreneurs, young global leaders, and you are all here assembled here in this hall, more than 1,500 people. I hope that we are all co-architects and builders of the house to be constructed, a Middle East house in the global village, a peaceful, stable and prosperous neighbor. For this reason, Mr. President, your visit to this region, accompanied by such an important delegation, and your presence here among us is so crucial and important. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome the President of the United States, the Honorable George W. Bush.
Klaus, thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me. Klaus said it's about time you showed up. I'm proud to be here. Laura and I are so honored that, Klaus, you gave us a chance to come. I do want to thank President Mubarak and Mrs. Mubarak for their wonderful hospitality. I want to thank the members of Congress who are here. I appreciate the heads of state who have joined us. I thank the foreign ministers who are here, including my own, Secretary of State Condoleezza Rice, and I want to thank the members of the Diplomatic Corps. Laura and I are delighted to be in Egypt, and we bring the warm wishes of the American people. We're proud of our long friendship with your citizens. We respect your remarkable history, and we're humbled to walk in the ancient land of pharaohs, where a great civilization took root and wrote some of the first chapters in the epic story of humanity. America's a much younger nation, but we made our mark by advancing ideals as old as the pyramids. Those ideals of liberty and justice have sparked a revolution across much of the world. This hopeful movement made its way to places where dictators once reigned, and peaceful democracies seemed unimaginable. Places like Chile, and Indonesia, and Poland, and the Philippines, and South Korea. These nations have different histories and different traditions, yet each made the same democratic transition, and they did it on their own terms. In these countries, millions every year are rising from poverty. Women are realizing overdue opportunities, and people of faith are finding the blessing of worshiping God in peace. All these changes took place in the second half of the 20th century. I strongly believe that if leaders like those of you in this room act with vision and resolve, the first half of the 21st century can be the time when similar advances reach the Middle East. This region is home to energetic people, a powerful spirit of enterprise, and tremendous resources. It is capable of a very bright future, a future in which the Middle East is a place of innovation and discovery, driven by free men and women. In recent years, we've seen hopeful beginnings toward this vision. Turkey, a nation with a majority Muslim population, is a prosperous modern democracy. Afghanistan, under the leadership of President Karzai, is overcoming the Taliban and building a free society. Iraq, under the leadership of Prime Minister Maliki, is establishing a multi-ethnic democracy. We've seen the stirrings of reform from Morocco and Algeria to Jordan and the Gulf states. And isolation from the outside world is being overcome by the most democratic of innovations, the cell phone and the internet. America appreciates the challenges facing the Middle East, yet the light of liberty is beginning to shine. There's much to do to build on this momentum, from diversifying your economies to investing in your people to extending the reach of freedom. Nations across the region have an opportunity to move forward with bold and confident reforms and to lead the Middle East to its rightful place as a center of progress and achievement. Taking your place as a center of progress and achievement requires economic reform. This is a time of strength for many of your nation's economies. Since 2004, economic growth in the region has averaged more than 5%. Trade has expanded significantly. Technology has advanced rapidly. Foreign investment has increased dramatically. And unemployment rates have decreased in many nations. Egypt, for example, has posted strong economic growth, developed some of the world's fastest growing telecommunications companies, and made major investments that will boost tourism and trade. In order for this economic progress to result in permanent prosperity and an Egypt that reaches its full potential, however, economic reform must be accompanied by political reform, and I continue to hope that Egypt can lead the region in political reform. This is also a time to prepare for the economic changes ahead. The rising price of oil has brought great wealth to some in this region, but the supply of oil is limited. And nations like mine are aggressively developing alternatives to oil. Over time, as the world becomes less dependent on oil, nations in the Middle East will have to build more diverse and more dynamic economies. Your greatest asset in this quest is the entrepreneurial spirit of your people. The best way to take advantage of that spirit is to make reforms that unleash individual creativity and innovation. Your economies will be more vibrant when citizens who dream of starting their own companies can do so quickly without high regulatory and registration costs. Your economies will be more dynamic when property rights are protected and risk-taking is encouraged, not punished by law. Your economies will be more resilient when you adopt modern agricultural techniques that make farmers more productive and the food supply more secure. And your economies will have greater long-term prosperity when taxes are low and all your citizens know that their innovation and hard work will be rewarded. One of the most powerful drivers of economic growth is free trade. So nations in this region would benefit greatly from breaking down barriers to trade with each other. And America will continue working to open up trade at every level. In recent years, the United States has completed free trade agreements with Jordan, Oman, Morocco, and Bahrain. America will continue to negotiate bilateral free trade agreements in the region. We strongly supported Saudi Arabia's accession to the World Trade Organization, and we will continue to support nations making the reforms necessary to join the institutions of a global economy. And to break down trade barriers and ignite economic growth around the world, we will work tirelessly for a successful outcome to the Doha round this year. As we seek to open up new markets abroad, America will keep our markets open at home. There are voices in my country that urge America to adopt measures that would isolate us from the global economy. I firmly reject these calls for protectionism. We will continue to welcome foreign investment and trade, and the United States of America will stay open for business. Taking your place as a center of progress and achievement requires investing in your people. Some analysts believe the Middle East and North Africa will need to create up to 100 million new jobs over the next 10 to 15 years just to keep up with population growth. The key to realizing this goal is an educated workforce. This starts early on with primary schools that teach basic skills such as reading and math, rather than indoctrinating children with ideologies of hatred. An educated workforce also requires good high schools and universities where students are exposed to a variety of ideas, learn to think for themselves, and develop the capacity to innovate. Not long ago, the region marked a hopeful milestone in higher education. In our meeting yesterday, President Karzai told me he recently handed out diplomas to university graduates, including 300 degrees in medicine and 100 degrees in engineering, and a lot of degrees to lawyers. And many of the recipients were women. The people of the Middle East can count on the United States to be a strong partner in improving your educational systems. We're sponsoring training programs for teachers and administrators in nations like Jordan and Morocco and Lebanon. We sponsored English language programs where students can go for intensive language instruction. We've translated more than 80 children's books into Arabic. We've developed new online curricula for students from kindergarten through high school. It's also in America's interest to continue welcoming aspiring young adults from this region for higher education to the United States. There were understandable concerns about student visas after 9/11. My administration has worked hard to improve the visa process, and I'm pleased to report that we're issuing a growing number of student visas to young people from the Middle East, and that's the way it should be. And we'll continue to work to expand educational exchanges, because we benefit from the contribution of foreign students who study in America, because we're proud to train the world's leaders of tomorrow, and because we know there is no better antidote to the propaganda of our enemies than firsthand experience with life in the United States of America. Building powerful economies also requires expanding the role of women in society. This is a matter of morality and of basic math. No nation that cuts off half its population from opportunities will be as productive or prosperous as it could be. Women are a formidable force, as I've seen in my own family. And my own administration. As the nations of the Middle East open up their laws and their societies to women, they're learning the same thing. I applaud Egypt. Egypt is a model for the development of professional women. In Afghanistan, girls who were once denied even a basic education are now going to school. And a whole generation of Afghans will grow up with the intellectual tools to lead their nation toward prosperity. In Iraq and Kuwait, women are joining political parties and running campaigns and serving in public office. In some Gulf states, Women entrepreneurs are making a living and a name for themselves in the business world. Recently, I learned of a woman in Bahrain who owns her own shipping company. She started with a small office and 2 employees. When she first tried to register her business in her own name, she was turned down. She attended a business training class and was the only woman to participate. And when she applied for a customs license, officials expressed surprise because no woman had ever asked for one before. And yet, with hard work and determination, she turned her small company into a $2 million enterprise. And this year, Huda Janahi was named one of the 50 most powerful businesswomen in the Arab world. Huda is an inspiring example for the whole region. And America's message to other women in the Middle East is this: you have a great deal to contribute. You should have a strong voice in leading your countries. And my nation looks to the day when you have the rights and privileges you deserve. Taking your place as a center of progress and achievement requires extending the reach of freedom. Expanding freedom is vital to turning temporary wealth into lasting prosperity. Free societies stimulate competition in the marketplace. Free societies give people access to information they need to make informed and responsible decisions. And free societies give citizens the rule of law, which exposes corruption and builds confidence in the future. Freedom is also the basis for a democratic system of government, which is the only fair and just ordering of society, and the only way to guarantee the God-given rights of all people. Democracies do not take the same shape. They develop at different speeds and in different ways, and they reflect the unique cultures and traditions of their people. There are skeptics about democracy in this part of the world. I understand that. But as more people in the Middle East gain firsthand experience from freedom, many of the arguments against democracy are being discredited. For example, some say that democracy is a Western value that America seeks to impose on unwilling citizens. This is a condescending form of moral relativism. The truth is that freedom is a universal right, the Almighty's gift to every man, woman, and child on the face of the earth. And as we've seen time and time again, when people are allowed to make a choice between freedom and the alternative, they choose freedom. In Afghanistan, 8 million people defied the terrorist threats to vote for a democratic president. In Iraq, 12 million people waved ink-stained fingers to celebrate the first democratic election in decades. In a recent survey of the Muslim world, there was overwhelming support for one of the central tenets of democracy: freedom of speech. 99% in Lebanon, 94% here in Egypt, and 92% in Iran. There are people who claim that democracy is incompatible with Islam. But the truth is that democracies, by definition, make a place for people of religious belief. America is one of the world's leading democracies, and we're also one of the most religious nations in the world. More than 3/4 of our citizens believe in a higher power. Millions worship every week and pray every day. And they do so without fear of reprisal from the state. In our democracy, we would never punish a person for owning a Koran. We would never issue a death sentence to someone for converting to Islam. Democracy does not threaten Islam or any religion. Democracy is the only system of government that guarantees their protection. Some say any state that holds an election is a democracy. But true democracy requires vigorous political parties allowed to engage in free and lively debate. True democracy requires the establishment of civic institutions that ensure an election's legitimacy and hold leaders accountable. And true democracy requires competitive elections in which opposition candidates are allowed to campaign without fear or intimidation. Too often in the Middle East, Politics has consisted of one leader in power and the opposition in jail. America is deeply concerned about the plight of political prisoners in this region, as well as democratic activists who are intimidated or repressed, newspapers and civil society organizations that are shut down, and dissidents whose voices are stifled. The time has come for nations across the Middle East to abandon these practices and treat their people with dignity and the respect they deserve. I call on all nations to release their prisoners of conscience, open up their political debate, and trust their people to chart their future. The vision I've outlined today is shared by many in this region, but unfortunately, there are some spoilers who stand in the way. Terrorist organizations and their state sponsors know they cannot survive in a free society, so they create chaos and take innocent lives in an effort to stop democracy from taking root. They're on the wrong side in a great ideological struggle, and every nation committed to freedom and progress in the Middle East must stand together to defeat them. We must stand with the Palestinian people, who have suffered for decades and earned the right to be a homeland of their own, to have a homeland of their own. I strongly support a two-state solution, a democratic Palestine based on law and justice that will live with peace and security alongside a democratic Israel. I believe that the Palestinian people will build a thriving democracy in which entrepreneurs pursue their dreams and families own their homes and lively communities and young people grow up with hope in the future. Last year in Annapolis, we made a hopeful beginning toward a peace negotiation that will outline what this nation of Palestine will look like. A contiguous state where Palestinians live in prosperity and dignity. A peace agreement is in the Palestinians' interests. It is in Israel's interests. It is in Arab states' interests, and it is in the world's interests. And I firmly believe that with leadership and courage, we can reach that peace agreement this year. This is a demanding task. It requires action on all sides. Palestinians must fight terror and continue to build the institutions of a free and peaceful society. Israel must make tough sacrifices for peace and ease the restrictions on the Palestinians. Arab states, especially oil-rich nations, must seize this opportunity to invest aggressively in the Palestinian people and to move past their old resentments against Israel. And all nations in the region must stand together in confronting Hamas, which is attempting to undermine efforts at peace with acts of terror and violence. We must stand with the people of Lebanon in the struggle to build a sovereign and independent democracy. This means opposing Hezbollah terrorists funded by Iran, who recently revealed their true intentions by taking up arms against the Lebanese people. It's now clearer than ever that Hezbollah militias are the enemy of a free Lebanon. And all nations, especially neighbors in the region, have an interest to help the Lebanese people prevail. We must stand with the people of Iraq and Afghanistan and other nations in the region fighting against al-Qaeda and other extremists. Bin Laden and his followers have made clear that anyone who does not share their extremist ideology is fit for murder. That means every government in the Middle East is a target of al-Qaeda, and America is a target too. And together we will confront and we will defeat this threat to civilization. We must stand with the good and decent people of Iran and Syria, who deserve so much better than the life they have today. Every peaceful nation in the region has an interest in stopping these nations from supporting terrorism. And every peaceful nation in the region has an interest in opposing Iran's nuclear weapons ambitions. To allow the world's leading sponsor of terror To gain the world's deadliest weapon would be an unforgivable betrayal of future generations. For the sake of peace, the world must not allow Iran to have a nuclear weapon. Changes I've discussed today will not come easily. Change never does. But the reform movement in the Middle East has a powerful engine: demographics. 60% of the population is under 30 years old. Many of these young people surf the web, own cell phones, have satellite televisions. They have access to unprecedented amounts of information. They see what freedom has brought to millions of others and contrast that to what they have at home. Today I have a message for these young people. Some will tell you change is impossible, but history has a way of surprising us, and change can happen more quickly than we expect. In the past century, one concept has transcended borders, cultures, and languages. In Arabic, Hurriya; in English, freedom. Across the world, the call for freedom lives in our hearts, endures in our prayers, and joins humanity as one. I know these are trying times, but the future is in your hands, and freedom and peace are within your grasp. Just imagine what this region could look like in 60 years. The Palestinian people will have the homeland they've long dreamed of and deserved. A democratic state that is governed by law, respects human rights, and rejects terror. Israel will be celebrating its 120th anniversary as one of the world's great democracies, a secure and flourishing homeland for the Jewish people. From Cairo, Riyadh, Baghdad to Beirut, people will live in free and independent societies where a desire for peace is reinforced by ties of diplomacy and tourism and trade. Iran and Syria will be peaceful nations where today's oppression is a distant memory and people are free to speak their minds and develop their talents. Al-Qaeda, Hezbollah, and Hamas will be defeated as Muslims across the region recognize the emptiness of the terrorist vision and the injustice of their cause. This vision is the same one I outlined in my address to the Israeli Knesset. Yet it's not a Jewish vision or a Muslim vision, not an American vision or an Arab vision. It is a universal vision based on the timeless principles of dignity and tolerance and justice, and it unites all who yearn for freedom and peace in this ancient land. Realizing this vision will not be easy. It will take time and sacrifice and resolve. Yet there is no doubt in my mind that you are up to the challenge. And with your ingenuity and your enterprise and your courage, this historic vision for the Middle East will be realized. May God be with you on this journey, and the United States of America will be at your side. Thank you for having me.